Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. It's Sunday, and if you're following my channel closely, which you probably don't, but doesn't matter, excuse me, you will have noticed that there was no video last Wednesday because normally I post Sunday and Wednesday, and that was because I was traveling. I was in Amsterdam. And what do I do when I am in Amsterdam, except besides work? Of course, I buy books. So this is another Amsterdam book haul. Yes, I did it again, and I bought, I think, 7 books or something that I want to share with you. The books that I will present to you are in no particular order, so you go from newer books to older books a little bit, but it's just the way I piled them up. And the first one is this one, Call Me Zebra by Azarine van der Vliet Olomi, which was published earlier this year, in February, I believe. I've never heard of this author, but this is not her debut. She wrote another novel before that. And I was intrigued when I first came across the book because of the name of the author, I have to admit it, because Van der Vliet is a very, very Dutch last name, and the rest of the name is obviously Persian. That intrigued me, so I checked out the book, and indeed, Azarine van der Vliet Olomi was born in Iran and then fled through Spain to the United States, where she now lives. And the book also centers around a refugee story. The main character is Zebra, a young woman, 22 years of age, studying literature in the US. She was born in 1982 in Iran to a family. Her father was a literature professor, but they had to flee after the revolution, and they fled through Spain to New York. The mother dies during the journey, and the father then later in New York dies as well. And that event, obviously, from what I understood, triggered Zebra to trace back the steps of the family's trip. So through Spain, back to Iran to, get closure, find out what she is about. So it's a sort of a coming of age story, but with a very definite refugee theme. I thought that sounded interesting. Like I said, the book had been on my radar since it came out in February, but I never picked it up. It had mixed reviews, also on BookTube. I know that Camille over at What Camille Reads wasn't quite convinced by it. Simon from Savage Reads, if I remember correctly, really liked it. But I'm interested in, apart from the name of the author, I'm interested in that premise. I'm always trying, to read stories that center around a background that I have no idea of. So I will, hopefully I will side more with Simon, but we'll see. And of course, I'll report back once I've read the book. And then the second book I want to talk to you about is also a book that had been on my radar for some time. It came out in 2016, and that is Sarah Dommett's debut novel, The Guineveres. I'm interested in debuts, as you know, if you're following my channel for any length of time. So I'm always trying, to read debut novels. And this one, like I said, I marked it when it came out in 2016. And like with the previous book, Call Me Zebra, I just didn't pick it up. And when I saw it in the bookstore in Amsterdam, in this paperback edition, I decided now is the time to pick it up. Sarah Dommett is a young American author, and like I said, this is her debut, and it centers around 4 young women, girls. Obviously, when the novel starts, in their teens, they are all their first name. All of the 4 girls are named Guinevere, and they end up in a convent, left there by their parents, various circumstances, and obviously, the fact that they all share the same first name binds them together. They don't like life in the convent, from what I understood, and try to flee, but that doesn't work out. They are punished, and the punishment is that they have to work in the hospital, the sick bay of the convent. And there they meet soldiers, and with some, twist of the story, those soldiers will will be their ticket, their way out of the convent. That's basically all I know. I found that premise intriguing. It's a debut novel, like I said, and I saw it by chance, so I picked it up, and I'm excited to discover another new author. The next book is also a new discovery for me, a new author, but not a debut author, and that is New People by Dancy Senna, published last year, 2017. Dancy Senna is an American author. This is her third novel. She has, from her father's side, an African-Mexican background. Her father is a poet. And from her mother's side, an Irish-American background. If I remember correctly, her mother is an activist. Senna herself studied in Stanford. And like I said, this is her third book. I've never heard of her. So sorry about that. And I picked it up because the cover was, catching because of the colors. And what I do then when I pick up a book, I read the blurb, and I think it might sound interesting, but I'm not sure. Then I do the 112-page test. And if you don't know what that means, you should go over at Sean's channel, over at Sean the Book Maniac. You should go over there. Anyway, if you are not subscribed to him, he invented this tag, and it means that you look at you only read page 112 of a book, and on the basis of that page you decide whether you want to read it. So that's what I did in the bookstore. I liked the writing, I thought it was interesting, so I decided to pick it up. The story centers around a young couple, end of the last century, beginning of this century, Maria and Khalil, who live in Brooklyn. Khalil is just, riding the wave of the new .com hype, and Maria is working on a dissertation about the Jonestown massacre. And then there's a documentary made about the new people, about these, young upcoming people in Brooklyn. And from what I understood, the making of the documentary triggers Maria to re-examine her life and her marriage. Sounded interesting, a new author, so I'm excited to get to this one. The next book is also a debut novel, but to be fair, that's not the reason why I picked it up. It's Isadora by Amelia Gray, published last year, 2017. And I wanted to read this novel for quite some time because it is about Isadora Duncan. If you don't know, Isadora Duncan was one of the most famous ballet dancers in the early 20th century. And I did ballet myself when I was young. I did classical, but also modern dance. So I'm always really interested in ballet. I admire Isadora Duncan. I will leave a link to a series of videos about her and about her dance techniques. She really revolutionized dance in the beginning of the 20th century. So that's the reason I picked up this book. It's historical fiction, a fictionalized account of her life. And from what I understood, centering around 1913, when Isadora Duncan was already famous, but was struck by fate, so to say. I'm struggling for words today. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. Because her two children died in a freak accident in Paris. So I'm not sure whether the whole life is covered, but I don't care. It's about Isadora Duncan. I admire Isadora Duncan, so I will read this book. The next book is a book that I used to own and lost. I don't know, gave to somebody, got lost in one of the 10 million moves I did. Anyway, but it was reissued this year, 2018, and that is Laura Siegel in Other People's Houses. The book was first published in 1964, and Laura Siegel is now 90. She was born in 1928 in Vienna, and she was sent, she's Jewish, and she was sent to England in one of those called Kindertransport, so Jewish children sent to safety in London. She studied there, later moved to the US, She published children's books. She was a translator. But the first book she published is this one, a fictionalized account of her journey as a 10-year-old fleeing Nazi Germany and living in various foster homes, other people's houses, during the war. I haven't read this book in a very long time, and I wanted to reread it. And as it so often happens, then I can't find the book anymore because, like I said, either I lost it or I gave it away or something. And it was just by chance that I saw it in the bookstore, and of course I had to pick it up. If you haven't read this, and if you are interested in this part of history, refugees, Jewish refugees, children, in the late 1930s, I can highly recommend this book. The next two books are books by authors that I'm slowly working my way through their backlist. And I bought them both in a secondhand bookstore, and I will leave a link to this bookstore down below. If you're ever in Amsterdam and you're interested in English language secondhand books, go check out the Book Exchange. It's an amazing store. It looks tiny from the outside, but it's like Doctor Who. It's bigger from the inside. They have nonfiction, fiction, fantasy, science fiction. They're just amazing. Anyway, so the first one that I found there is Jhumpa Lahiri's The Namesake, published in 2003, and it's one of the books of hers that I haven't read yet. Like I said, I'm working my way slowly through the backlist. You probably, if you're following my channel, you heard me talking about her non-fiction book, In Other Words, about the time Jhumpa Lahiri spent in Italy, writing in Italian. I really loved that book. And this is a novel about Gogol, who is born to Indian immigrants in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's about his life. I don't know much more than that. It's Jhumpa Lahiri, and it's one of the books that I haven't read, so of course I wanted to have it. And the last book, like I said, is also a book by an author that I'm working my way through the backlist, and that is A.S. Byatt, The Biographer's Tale, first published in 2000. Now, A.S. Byatt, I don't think needs an introduction. Very well-known and beloved by me English author. Her book, the children's book, is one of my favorite books. I also like Possession very much. And The Biographer's Tale is about a man, a postgraduate student, who abandons his studies and tasks himself with writing a biography of a famous biographer. That already sounded interesting, and like I said, A.S. Byatt. But I was interested in this book in particular for another reason, because it is about writing a biography and what is the truth in a biography and how much can you fictionalize in a biography. A friend of mine writes biographies, and we often had talks about his quarrels with his editors and publishers who didn't want him to drift off into fiction. And A.S. Byatt wrote and talked about writing biography, and her point of view is that all biography is fiction because you make choices of what to include and what not to include, and it's your point of view of the person you're writing about. So I thought it would be interesting, after having read her thoughts on biography, to read a novel by her dealing with that subject. So, The Biographer's Tale by A.S. Byatt. So these were all the books that I acquired in Amsterdam. I think I was pretty holding myself back, which is not due to the fact that I, ask myself not to buy more books. It's just a matter of weight. I always have one bag that I can fill with books, and I know that I can carry that in addition to the suitcase and all the other stuff that I bring from Amsterdam. And if that bag is full, I have to stop. So that's the rationale behind me stopping after those books. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments whether you read any of the books that I just hauled, or whether you are interested of reading any of them. Talk to me about any other books. You know how much I love to talk to you in the comments, and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Bye bye.